The stars glittered coldly in the vast expanse of space, but a new and terrifying war was brewing. The galaxy was at peace, or so it seemed. Humans had lived quietly among the stars for years, expanding their reach, building alliances, and spreading their influence across distant planets. But behind their smiles and peaceful treaties, a dark storm was on the horizon. The aliens, the powerful, ancient species of the galaxy, had been watching humanity closely. Some believed humans were just another species destined to fade away, nothing special. They were young compared to the long-lived races of the galaxy. They were just beginning to explore the stars, and many thought they would never become a serious threat. But they were wrong. It started with the sudden disappearance of a few human colonies. Entire fleets vanished, without a trace. Messages sent in desperation, cries for help, but no response. There were whispers among the alien council, rumors that Earth's time had come to an end. The galaxy's greatest powers saw this as an opportunity to crush humanity once and for all. A massive, coordinated attack was launched. Thousands of alien ships, each larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built, swarmed towards Earth. Their mission was clear: destroy humanity. Their weapons were deadly, and their numbers seemed endless. They believed this would be an easy victory. After all, Earth's technology was outdated compared to theirs. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that humanity was hiding something. Something ancient. Something that could change everything. On Earth, hidden beneath the surface, deep within a long-forgotten vault, the last remnants of an old human secret were awakening. A weapon so powerful that it could alter the course of the entire galaxy. It was a secret buried for centuries, locked away by Earth's greatest minds, kept from the rest of the universe. The weapon wasn't just a tool of destruction. It was humanity's final hope. As the alien fleets drew closer, the skies above Earth darkened with their ships. The world was preparing for its last stand. Governments crumbled, cities were abandoned, and people took refuge underground, hoping to survive whatever was coming. The remaining human leaders met in secret. The world had gone silent, and yet they were not giving up. They had one last chance. In the depths of an ancient underground facility, a team of human scientists and engineers worked tirelessly. They were led by a brilliant but mysterious figure known only as Dr. David King. No one knew his full history, but all knew he was the key to unlocking the hidden power of humanity's secret weapon. The tension in the room was thick as Dr. King typed in the final command. The ground rumbled beneath them as the vault doors slowly opened, revealing a massive, glowing object suspended in midair. It looked like a sphere, but it pulsed with energy, unlike anything ever seen before. The room was filled with a strange humming sound, like a heartbeat. It was the heart of humanity's secret weapon. Dr. King turned to the group. "This is it," he said, his voice low and steady. "This is the power we've been hiding for generations. This is humanity's last chance." But even as the humans celebrated, a wave of doubt swept over them. The weapon's energy was so powerful, so unpredictable, that no one knew what would happen once it was unleashed. Could they control it? Could they survive its power? Was it too dangerous to use? As the alien forces approached, time was running out. The humans had no choice but to trust in their greatest creation. The weapon was activated. A pulse of energy erupted from the sphere, shooting up into the sky like a bolt of lightning. The air crackled with energy, and for a moment the stars themselves seemed to flicker. The alien fleets, watching from space, saw the flash of light. They knew immediately that something had changed. Humanity was no longer weak. But what was this weapon? Was it a trap? Or was it the power they had feared for so long? The first alien ships to approach Earth's orbit began to fall apart in the face of the weapon's energy. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Their shields, their weapons, their technology, all were useless against it. They fired back, sending every weapon they had at Earth's atmosphere. But the weapon did not stop. It pulsed with relentless energy, growing stronger with each passing second. On Earth, the sky burned with light. Cities shook as the weapon's power reached its peak. The ground cracked open, and massive waves of energy surged outward, pushing back the alien fleets. For a moment, it seemed as if Earth might be able to hold its own. The universe had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. But there was a problem. The weapon was too powerful. It was beginning to spiral out of control. The energy was no longer just a force to drive back the aliens. It was growing, expanding, threatening to consume everything in its path. The scientists were frantically working to shut it down, but it was too late. The weapon's energy had a mind of its own, and it wasn't about to be controlled. As the weapon reached its peak, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Was this the end of humanity? Or would Earth survive, its secret weapon now the key to a new era? The galaxy watched, unsure of what would happen next. In a final, desperate move, Dr. King made the ultimate sacrifice. He entered the weapon's core, willing to do whatever it took to stabilize its power. With a final cry, he triggered the sequence that would either destroy the weapon or save the galaxy. The light intensified, then exploded outward in a blinding flash. When the light faded, the weapon was gone. The galaxy was silent. The alien fleets had been shattered, but at a great cost. Humanity had won, but at what price? The weapon had disappeared, and the humans were left to pick up the pieces of a broken world. They had proven that they were not to be underestimated, but the galaxy was forever changed. And as Earth's leaders looked to the stars, they realized one thing: the universe was no longer the same. Humanity had shown that it could survive, and perhaps even thrive, against the greatest forces in the galaxy. But the real battle had only just begun. The secret weapon of humanity had been unleashed. Now, the galaxy would never forget who humans were. The galaxy had always been a place of hidden power and politics. For centuries, the great alien factions ruled without challenge. Humans, in their short history among the stars, had only recently earned a place at the table. They had proven themselves as allies to some, but enemies to others. Peace had come to Earth, but no one could forget the ancient distrust that ran through the veins of the universe. Everything changed when an urgent message was sent to Earth from an unexpected source. A highly ranked officer from the Galactic Council, an ancient alliance of alien species, claimed to have discovered a plot that could destroy humanity. He promised to reveal everything, but only if he could meet with human leaders face to face. His name was Kalis, and he had been a member of the Council for years. His reputation for honesty was known across the galaxy. But could he really be trusted? A team of humans, including diplomats, scientists, and military personnel, was sent to meet Kalis on a remote moon. The meeting was scheduled to take place on an ancient, forgotten base on the moon's surface. No one knew exactly why the meeting had to be there, but there was an unsettling feeling about it. They had no choice but to go. The fate of humanity might rest on what Kalis knew. As the human delegation landed on the barren moon, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The base looked abandoned, yet all systems were active. The air was thick with tension as they entered the dark, cold corridors. The place seemed to echo with the whispers of the past, as though it held secrets buried for centuries. But the human leaders pressed on, determined to meet Kalis and learn the truth. When they finally met the officer, his eyes were filled with urgency. "I've been watching you," he said. "Your kind, your species are about to be betrayed by the very people you trust." He explained that a hidden faction within the Galactic Council had been plotting against humanity for years. They had seen the rise of humans as a threat, a potential rival to their dominance over the galaxy. The Council had plans to destroy Earth in one swift strike, using an ancient weapon that was now activated. The humans listened in disbelief. Was this a trick? Could Kalis really be trusted? He seemed sincere, but there was something in his voice that made them question everything. What if this was just another game of galactic politics? What if they were being set up? Before they could ask more questions, a sudden explosion shook the moon's surface. The ground trembled beneath them, and the sound of footsteps echoed in the halls. Someone was coming. The humans quickly realized that they were no longer in control of the situation. The base was being attacked. Kalis seemed unfazed. "It's too late," he said quietly, as if he had expected this. "The betrayal has already begun." the group rushed to the control room to find out what was happening. There, they were met by a shocking sight. The screens displayed the image of the Galactic Council's largest warship, now on a direct course for Earth. But it wasn't just any attack, it was a full-scale invasion. Earth was being targeted, and the weapon Kaylee's had warned about was already in motion. The humans were trapped. The doors to the control room slammed shut, and their communication lines to Earth were cut off. They were surrounded by enemy forces, and there was nowhere to run. It was clear now, Kalis had been telling the truth, but why had he waited until it was too late to warn them? As the human delegation scrambled to figure out how to stop the invasion, another shocking revelation came to light. The traitors within the Galactic Council weren't just members of the Council, they were some of the highest-ranking officials in the galaxy, people the humans had worked with for years. This was no simple conspiracy. It was a betrayal that reached the highest levels of power. Desperation set in. The humans had to act quickly, or Earth would fall to the galactic invaders. But they couldn't do it alone. They needed Kaylee's. The officer had the knowledge, the inside information that could turn the tide of the battle. They begged him to help them, but his response was chilling. "I've already done my part," he said, his voice calm, even as the enemy closed in. "Now, it's your turn." The humans were left with no choice. They had to make a decision: use the knowledge Kaylee's had given them to try to stop the warship, or risk everything and trust that Kaylee's had told them the truth. Time was running out, and there was no room for hesitation. As they raced to the base's central systems, the doors burst open. The enemy had found them. A fierce firefight broke out, and the humans fought desperately to stay alive. Every second mattered now, every movement a risk. In the chaos, Kaylee's was taken prisoner by the enemy forces. The humans were left without their most valuable ally, but they knew they had no choice but to continue the mission. Just as the warship's final countdown began, the humans made their move. They used the knowledge Kaylee's had given them to deactivate the weapon and send the warship into a spiral, crashing it into the moon's surface. It wasn't a perfect victory, but it was enough to stop the immediate threat to Earth. But as the dust settled, the true cost of the betrayal became clear. Kalis, the officer who had tried to warn humanity, was gone. The betrayal had gone deeper than anyone realized, and the galaxy was no longer the safe place it once was. The Galactic Council, fractured by the treachery, could not be trusted. Humanity had survived, but at what cost? The humans returned to Earth, knowing that the fight wasn't over. The betrayal was only the beginning. As they looked to the stars, they knew that the universe would never be the same. Earth had made powerful enemies, and now it had to be ready for whatever came next. The galactic betrayal had been stopped for now. But the true war had only just begun. The galaxy was no longer a peaceful place, and humanity had learned a painful truth. In the world of galactic politics, trust was a luxury they could no longer afford. The galaxy had long underestimated humanity. For years, humans had been confined to their own corner of the universe, building colonies on distant planets and exploring the stars. They were seen as a young species, just starting to stretch their wings in a galaxy filled with far older, more powerful civilizations. But no one could predict what would happen when humanity was pushed too far. It all started when the alien race known as the Zephyr made their move. The Zephyr had watched humanity grow, observing them from afar, and they saw Earth as a growing threat to their dominance in the galaxy. They had no interest in negotiating or making peace. For the Zephyr, the only solution was destruction. They launched a surprise attack on humanity's colonies, wiping out entire fleets and sending Earth's allies into retreat. The war was swift and brutal. At first, humans were helpless. The Zephyr's ships were massive and technologically advanced, far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. The human fleet was outmatched, outgunned, and outnumbered. Earth's defenses crumbled under the relentless assault. Hope seemed lost. But humanity was never a species to give up easily. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, humans fought back. They were resilient, they were resourceful, and they had something the Zephyr didn't, an unyielding will to survive. In the depths of Earth's military command, a plan was being developed. It was risky, almost impossible, but if they didn't act, humanity's future would be wiped out forever. The plan was simple: take the fight directly to the heart of the Zephyr Empire. It was a dangerous idea, one that could cost everything, but it was their last hope. The humans knew they had to strike fast. They would need a small, elite Force One that could infiltrate the Zephyr's territory, find their command center, and disable their weapons from the inside. But this was no ordinary mission. The humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to prove that they were not to be underestimated. Commander Jenna Clark, one of the brightest minds in humanity's military, was given command of the operation. She had seen the horrors of the war firsthand, and she knew what was at stake. The odds were stacked against them, but if anyone could lead a successful strike, it was her. She handpicked her team of soldiers, engineers, and hackers, each one a specialist. In their field.as, they boarded their stealth ship, cloaked from the Zephyr's sensors. The tension was palpable. They knew they had no room for error. The journey to the Zephyr homeworld would take weeks, and every moment was filled with the unknown. Would they make it past the Zephyr's defense systems? Would they be able to infiltrate their command center without being detected? The journey was filled with near misses and close calls. They barely escaped a Zephyr patrol in one sector and narrowly avoided a catastrophic asteroid storm. But despite the dangers, the team pressed on. They were fighting not just for their own lives, but for the future of all humanity. When they finally reached the Zephyr homeworld, the real challenge began. The planet was surrounded by an impenetrable shield that could destroy anything that came too close. But the humans had a plan. Using a stolen Zephyr ship's technology, they managed to disable the shield long enough to slip through. The landing was rough, and the moment they set foot on the surface, they were met with resistance. The Zephyr knew they were there. The clock was ticking. Every second they spent on the planet increased the risk of detection. They had to move quickly. The team made their way through the enemy's complex, using the cover of darkness to avoid patrols and surveillance. They were almost there, the control room that housed the Zephyr's central command and their devastating weapon systems. But just as they reached the door, disaster struck. A Zephyr soldier appeared, and a firefight broke out. The team fought hard, but they were outnumbered. Commander Clark was wounded, and the mission seemed to be falling apart. In the chaos, a new problem arose. The Zephyr were activating their super weapon, a massive cannon that could destroy entire planets in one shot. Earth was already under threat, and if they didn't stop it now, there would be no future for humanity. The weapon's countdown was ticking down, and every second brought them closer to the end. With Clark injured and the team scattered, it seemed impossible to finish the mission. But then, one of the engineers, Lieutenant Ryan Hayes, made a bold move. He hacked into the Zephyr's systems, taking control of their weapons for just long enough to disable the cannon. It was a long shot, but it worked. The countdown stopped. But they still weren't safe. The Zephyr had realized the mission's true objective, and they were determined to stop it at any cost. The team had to fight their way out of the compound, dodging lasers and enemy fire, desperate to get back to their ship. The Zephyr were closing in, and the tension was higher than ever. Finally, with the last of their strength, they made it back to their ship and took off, just as the Zephyr's reinforcements arrived. The humans had succeeded. They had struck back and disabled the weapon. But they had no time to celebrate. The battle was far from over. The Zephyr would not forgive this defeat, and they would not rest until humanity was destroyed. As the team returned to Earth, battered but triumphant. They knew that the war was far from over. They had struck back, but now they had to prepare for the next phase. The Zephyr had learned humanity's strength, and they would not underestimate them again. The real fight had just begun. Back on Earth, the people waited for news. They had been watching, hoping, praying. When the humans returned, they were greeted with cheers, but also with uncertainty. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, and the Zephyr weren't the only threat humanity faced. But in that moment, humanity had proven something important: they could strike back. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown the galaxy that they were no longer just a small, young species. They were a force to be reckoned with. And they would fight until the very end to protect their home. Humanity had struck back. And the galaxy would never forget it. The universe had known peace for centuries, but peace was always fragile. Across the stars, ancient civilizations watched each other from a distance, each race powerful in its own way. Yet, for all their might, they were not prepared for the arrival of something beyond their understanding, the Sindari. The Sindari were not a race of mere conquerors. They were something far worse. A species that had no need for war, for they simply consumed. Entire planets, entire systems were swallowed whole by their unstoppable hunger. No weapons, no shields, and no defenses could stand against them. They arrived like a storm, and no one could predict the path they would take. In a galaxy that was already struggling with its own internal conflicts, the Sindari appeared without warning. They began their campaign of destruction with brutal efficiency, devouring worlds and civilizations alike. With each passing day, more and more planets fell to their insatiable hunger, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. One by one, the great galactic powers fell. The Zainari, known for their speed and intellect, were overwhelmed. The Korma, a race of giant beings who once controlled the stars, were crushed under the Sindari's might. The Galactic Council, which had long worked to maintain balance, was powerless in the face of this new threat. There was no hope left. Or so it seemed. In the darkest corner of the universe, where no one dared to look, a single planet remained untouched by the Sindari's hunger. It was Earth. Humanity, seemingly insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy, had survived the onslaught. But why? The answer was a mystery, and no one had an explanation. The Sindari had spared Earth, but for how long? As the last remnants of the galaxy's great powers gathered to make one final stand, a young human scientist named Dr. Elora Morgan discovered something that could change everything. She had spent years studying the strange anomalies surrounding Earth's survival, but what she found was beyond anything she could have imagined. Deep within the core of Earth, buried in ancient ruins, Dr. Morgan uncovered a long-lost technology. It was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A weapon capable of not only stopping the Sindari, but eradicating them. It was a weapon that could restore balance to the universe and bring hope to those who had already lost everything. The weapon was called the Solstice Core. But there was a problem. The Solstice Core was not something that could be activated at will. It required a certain set of conditions, a key that had been lost to time. And the only way to activate it was to travel to the heart of the Sindari's territory and place the key in the core's activation chamber. A task no one had ever thought possible. Dr. Morgan knew that this was humanity's last chance. If they didn't act soon, the Sindari would consume Earth as well. She presented her findings to the remaining leaders of the galactic powers. Desperation hung heavy in the air as they listened. Could they trust this human? Could this seemingly fragile species really hold the fate of the entire universe in its hands? The answer came swiftly. Earth was the last hope of the galaxy. There was no other option. The remaining leaders formed an alliance with humanity, agreeing to send their best warriors, engineers, and scientists to help retrieve the key and activate the Solstice Core. Time was running out, and the fate of the universe rested on this mission. A small, elite team was assembled. Led by Dr. Morgan, they would embark on a journey into the heart of the Sindari's territory, a place where no one dared to go. The risks were unimaginable. The Sindari were everywhere, devouring everything in their path. No fleet had ever returned from their homeworld, and even the bravest warriors had fallen before them. But the team had no choice. They were humanity's last hope. As they journeyed through the galaxy, the team faced countless dangers. They fought off waves of Sindari patrols, dodged asteroid storms, and navigated through uncharted space. The tension was unbearable, and every moment felt like a step closer to the end. But they pressed on, knowing what was at stake. Finally, they arrived at the edge of Sindari territory. The planet loomed ahead, dark and foreboding. The Solstice Core was somewhere on its surface, hidden in an ancient, crumbling city. The team prepared for what was to come. They knew that even if they reached the core, they would have to fight their way through the Sindari's deadly defenses. The moment they set foot on the planet, the air turned cold. The Sindari were aware of their presence. The hunt had begun. The team fought their way through the ruins, inching closer to their goal. They were running out of time. The Sindari were relentless, and the closer they got to the core, the more dangerous the planet became. It was as if the very land itself was trying to stop them. When they finally reached the chamber where the core was housed, they were met with the Sindari's most terrifying creation yet, a massive, nearly invincible creature that guarded the core. It was a terrifying beast, made of living energy, its body constantly shifting and warping as it moved. The team fought valiantly, but the creature was too powerful. One by one, they fell, until only Dr. Morgan remained. She was wounded, exhausted, but she couldn't give up. The fate of the entire universe depended on her. With a final surge of energy, she activated the Solstice Core. The weapon's power surged through the planet, a blinding light that reached out across the stars. The Sindari's forces faltered, their hunger slowed, and their mighty empire began to crumble. The balance of the universe had shifted. As the light of the core spread, the Sindari's hold on the galaxy was broken. The universe had found its last hope in humanity. Dr. Morgan, though weakened and injured, had succeeded. She had saved the universe from certain destruction. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had turned. Humanity had done what no one else could. They had given the galaxy a chance to rebuild. And in the aftermath, as the light of the Solstice Core faded into the stars, the galaxy would never forget the true meaning of hope. Humanity, against all odds, had been the last hope of the universe. The universe had been saved, but the journey was far from over. The galaxy had been on the edge for years. A fragile peace, built over millennia, was slowly crumbling. The great empires that once controlled entire star systems now found themselves weakened, their alliances fractured by corruption, betrayal, and greed. But the true threat was not from within the galaxy, it was coming from the farthest reaches of space. The Dark Sovereign, an ancient and mysterious force, had begun to awaken. Legends spoke of this being, an entity that had once ruled the galaxy with terror, before it vanished into the void of space. No one knew where it came from or why it had disappeared, but now the Dark Sovereign was returning, and its power had only grown stronger. For centuries, the galaxy had been in a delicate balance. The various alien species, once bitter enemies, had joined forces under the banner of the Galactic Coalition, a fragile union created to fight off external threats. The coalition had been humanity's proud achievement, a blending of many different species, cultures, and technologies into one unified force. But the threat that was now rising could not be contained by alliances alone. The first signs of the Dark Sovereign's return came in the form of strange, unexplainable events. Entire planets went dark, communication was lost, and entire fleets of ships vanished without a trace. No one could explain it, and no one had any answers. The galaxy's greatest minds were left scrambling, trying to understand the pattern and trying to figure out who or what was behind the terrifying events. Humanity had long been considered the new blood of the galaxy. Their technology was young, but their courage was unparalleled. It wasn't long before the leaders of the Galactic Coalition looked to humanity for help. They believed that if anyone could unravel the mystery and stop the Dark Sovereign, it would be Earth's finest. But even the brightest minds of Earth were unsure of how to fight a threat that was not of this world. What could they possibly do against something that could erase entire fleets without lifting a finger? Amid the chaos, Commander Kyle Axton, a decorated officer in the human fleet, was summoned to lead the most dangerous mission of his career. He and his team were tasked with investigating the first planet to fall to the Dark Sovereign's influence, a once thriving world now reduced to a barren wasteland. Axton knew the risks. The mission was a one-way trip, and the chances of survival were slim. But he couldn't refuse. Humanity's future depended on it. The journey was long, and as they neared the planet, Axton's team began to notice something strange. There was an unnatural silence in space, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Their ship, the Vanguard, was surrounded by a dark fog, a mist that seemed to block out the stars. It felt wrong, like the very fabric of reality was beginning to unravel. When they landed, the team was shocked by the planet's desolation. There were no signs of life, no ruins, no remains of cities. The entire world had been swallowed up by a dark force, leaving nothing but lifeless dust. The only sign of activity was a strange, pulsing energy coming from deep within the planet's core. The team had to investigate. As they ventured deeper into the planet's ruins, they uncovered a shocking discovery: ancient artifacts, long-forgotten technologies that seemed to be connected to the Dark Sovereign. These were not the weapons or tools of any known species. They were something else entirely, something older, far older than anything humanity had encountered. Axton realized they were dealing with an ancient evil that had been sealed away for millennia. The Dark Sovereign wasn't just a force of destruction, it was a sentient being, an entity with a mind and a will. And it was beginning to wake up. As they made their way further into the depths of the planet, the team encountered their first real sign of the Dark Sovereign's power, a terrifying creature, a monster born from the very darkness itself. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, with shifting forms that seemed to bend and distort reality. The creature attacked with brutal force, and Axton's team fought valiantly, but the odds were against them. One by one, the team members fell, until only Axton remained. Wounded and alone, Commander Axton made a desperate decision. He activated the planet's ancient defense systems, hoping to destroy the creature and stop the Dark Sovereign from reaching the galaxy. But just as the systems powered up, something unexpected happened. A voice, low and powerful, echoed in his mind. "You cannot stop me," it said. "I am the darkness that swallows all. I am eternal. Your galaxy is mine." Axton's heart raced. The Dark Sovereign was not just a mindless force, it was intelligent, aware, and it had already begun its conquest. The creature that had been hunting them was not an isolated threat, it was a messenger, a harbinger of the Dark Sovereign's power. Realizing that he had no chance of stopping the Dark Sovereign on his own, Axton activated a distress signal, sending a call for help to the remaining forces of the Galactic Coalition. He had to warn them. He had to let them know the true scale of the danger. But as he tried to escape the planet's surface, the ground began to tremble. The sky above darkened, and a terrible, crushing force began to pull at his very soul. The Dark Sovereign was here, and it was coming for him. The Vanguard managed to pull Axton from the planet just in time, but the commander was gravely injured. As they escaped, he saw something that shook him to his core. The entire planet, once a barren wasteland, was now alive with dark energy. The Dark Sovereign had awakened in full force, and it was beginning its march toward the rest of the galaxy. The Galactic Coalition rallied their forces, preparing for the fight of their lives. Humanity, along with their allies, stood united against an enemy unlike any they had ever faced. The galaxy's reckoning had begun. But as Axton looked up at the dark clouds that now hung over the galaxy, he knew that the real battle was yet to come. The galaxy was at war, and the stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for the very soul of the universe. The Dark Sovereign had returned, and its reckoning had only just begun. The fate of the galaxy now rested in the hands of those brave enough to face the darkness.